Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the third race of the RTG Talladega Challenge as we are here at Talladega Superspeedway once again. And obviously, early on in the season, the points are close and the racing is just going to be as close here this evening. I'm Seth Cole, and I'm being joined alongside of Matthew Rodriguez. And Matt, I mean, obviously, I said this to James Qualls the last time we did the season opener. It's Talladega, a series that's completely around Talladega Super Speedway. Every race is at this super speedway, so it's kind of a who's who of who's going to be able to take the checkered flag, and definitely makes it a very unique series.
Absolutely. And I do have to say, everyone has their own different take of Talladega of what's the best strategy. Some say, oh, I'll just stay in the back and wait till all of them wreck and I'll just pass them all. And then you have the one saying, well, the best place to be is up front, so you avoid all those wrecks. It's pretty much a high-speed game of chess.
Absolutely is. We're going to have our pole sitter be Bernie Mobbs for this race in the number 90. Bernie comes into this race currently in the, if I can find his name here on the list, 32nd position in points. So a great qualifying effort for a person that really needs a good run. And of course, here in the early portion of the season too, is when you can make those big moves. You get a win, you're going to jump up, 10, 11, 12 spots in the stands. A lot easier to do than later on in the season.
Definitely, it's just trying to limit mistakes today. Some people are going out with the mentality of, hey, I can win this race, but others are saying, hey, I just need to protect my points and just wait for those top guys to get an instance or fall out.
Tim Knopfsker's going to start alongside of him. Knopfsker coming into this race 12th in the point standings. Then you got Jessica Shelton lining up in third. Bob Seminara is going to be in fourth, completing the top five. Chuck McClure in the 17. Mark Paglia will be rolling off outside of row 3 in 6th. 7th is going to be Brian Schilling. 8th, Josh Metallic. 9th for Donnie Garrett. And completing the top 10 is going to be Dave Little. I believe we have 39 drivers in tonight's field. 66 laps of racing. When we did the first race of the season, we really saw the trouble spot be pit road for a lot of the drivers. Now that these drivers have 2 races under their belt here, do you think we're still going to see pit road and the green flag pit stops be a problem? Or with as big a field we have tonight, do we see the big one loom?
I'll say from personal experience, getting on the pit road at super speedways are one of the most hectic parts. It's the fact of when you're racing, just trying to judge and guess when everyone's going to come down. And hey, when they announce they're coming down, you've only got about 10, 15 seconds to make your decision of, am I going to come down? And then when you actually get onto the apron, you've got to figure out where everyone's braking points are so you don't run them over.
Well, we're about to find out what's going to happen here at the end of 66 laps. Green flag is in the air, and we're racing in the third race of the RTG Talladega Challenge. You saw right there, Jessica Shelton trying to time when the 90 was going to go, gave him a shove at the start. Both lines even for the moment. Now inside line prevails. Mobbs is going to go to the race lead. And of course, with this only being the third race of the season, this definitely has it wide open for drivers to gain and lose positions in the standings, but also at the same time, we've got a tie coming into this race. The season opener winner, Grant Wesley, who of course won that race under caution, and then last week, Joe DeSpirito took the checkered flag, so they both come in a dead even tie. That's got to give you some incentive that probably those two are going to keep an eye on where each other are on the track, because they're obviously trying to see who's going to be able to take the points lead after this third race.
You've got to think Grant and Joe both had it on their mind that, hey, if I come out, if I dominate this race, lead all the laps, get the win, and if something happens to the other guy, hey, I'm in a perfect position where if something happens to me, I've got at least a little bit of a cushion.
We were told in the season debut race that the middle line is the preferred lane to go here, and you can see Bernie Mobbs is going to jump up there with Knopfsker on the early portions of this race, lead that middle lane. Going to bring the 17 of Chuck McClure along with him. I'm sorry, actually, that is the 712 of Bob Seminara that he's leading. And then also Mark Paglia there in the 28, Josh Metallic in the 39. Right now, they're only double wide, side by side for the fourth position, with Paglia on the top side, Shelton on the bottom. That inside line not getting a lot of momentum. Kind of strange when you consider a super speedway that everybody's fighting for the upper lane rather than trying to keep it pinned down to that double yellow line.
It's really about where you find your friends. I mean, here's the thing, the faster line may be the bottom, but if you can get more people up top and at the bottom line recognizes they're losing, they'll start to jump ship.
Ryan Schilling in the 4 there, third on that inside line behind McClure in the 17. Schilling coming into this race 6th in the point standings. Bob Seminara is 4th in the points. Those are really the only guys up here at the front right now, 4th and 6th in the stands, that are up right now inside of the top 10. But you got to feel that, maybe some of those guys like Grant Wesley and Joe DeSpirito, could they just be hanging back for the moment, making sure that they're going to be there at the end because they're kind of big picture racing?
That's the thing. It's the thing of trying to figure out whether you want to go all out and try to get as much as a lead as you can, but that also, it's risk comes with reward. If you risk it, you run up front, you run the risk of losing it all.
Kind of drop back here and find where both those drivers are. I don't see them up in the lead pack, and that's because they aren't. I believe the 24 is right there. Joe DeSpirito and Grant Wesley actually nose to tail. This looks like a little bit of strategy back here. You've got 3 packs, and this is the 3rd pack being led by Cy Jones in the 7. You've also got Alan Martin in the 5, DeSpirito in the 24, Wesley in the 88. I believe that is the 10 car there. It is of Terry Bombard, and I think that's the 00 of Wayne Pribnow. I think these are what you would call the Joe Gibbs racing cars, because if people remember back at a Talladega race, I think it was in 2017, all the JGR Toyotas rode towards the back all by themselves. They kind of kept themselves on the lead lap but away from trouble.
I mean, you've got to look at Wayne in his current point standing. I mean, he's running 23rd in points. He finished 31st in the first race and 19th in the second. You've got to think maybe his current strategy isn't working, so he's trying to switch it up a little bit with his team.
And of course, too, when you're in a group of 5 or 6, like this second group and that third group, it gives you a better opportunity to be able to form up when you come onto pit road for green flag pit stops, rather than have 12, 13, 14 other cars coming to pit road with you. It's a lot more organized.
If we will say that, I'm taking a look back through the field here. Definitely a lot of guys who are lower in points, just with differing strategies here.
This is the 57 of Stefan Martel leading this second group. Got the 36 behind him, Jack Dussault. Also the 27. And I was actually given the correct pronunciation of the 27 is Andre Mongoin.
Definitely a unique name.
Yes, he is French, so I had to channel my inner French in knowing what his correct pronunciation is.
But
behind
definitely,
them,
Andre have not had good luck this season. 34th in points, finished 38th and 27th in the 2 races respectively. Looking for a change in luck here.
so no surprise that he's running back here in one of these little groups, as well as I believe that is the 11 of Mike Rogers and also the 87 of Benoit Plord.
Mike is someone who is... Oh, my apologies.
No, go ahead.
Mike is someone who's also had a little bit of bad luck. First race, almost dead last in 40th place. Last race was 24th. Trying to see if he can continue the upward swing.
Now, if I remember correctly from the first race we did, these drivers can go about 18 to 21 laps if they're really able to stretch it on fuel. And obviously for Bernie Mobbs, he's been out there here for these first 6, now about to complete 7 laps out in front. And while that's a good thing, while you're out there in front and you've got a chance to stay ahead of any wrecks that might take place, you're also using up the most fuel. So he's the guy we kind of have to pinpoint as one of the first ones to hit pit road if we do get to the first cycle of green flag pit stops.
Obviously, the leader really does control those pit stops. I mean, the leader... Oh, my apologies. I just saw something in the chat. But the leader really decides when everyone's deciding to come down. If the leader rapidly says, hey, I'm coming down pit road, and everyone behind him says, I'm following, well, you as a driver really has to make that decision of, well, do I chance it with whoever's staying out, or do I just come with the pack so I can have the bigger field?
Battle of side-by-side now for 7th. Bob Dixon up there in that Richard Petty colors, number 143. To the inside there is Jeremy Jeffries. So now we're starting to see a couple of guys that are running well in the point stands, working their way up to the top 10. Jeffries is one of those coming into this race, 7th in the points.
Same here, but looking at Bob Dixon, Bob has had really good starts here, both 12th and 5th respectively, but has just finished poorly. I don't know if it's just due to a stroke of bad luck or...
Well, these guys, they were not going 3 wide up at the front, but now they're kind of forced 3 wide as they've caught the Monster Energy number 2, that's Hank Middleton, who's going to go a lap down. I saw quite a number of stragglers there at the start of this race. I don't know if somebody didn't get going on the restart or if some of these guys, that second and third group we saw kind of hang back, if that kind of messed up some of these other guys as far as starting this race and caused them to lose the draft. But I think we may end up having some more traffic reeled in momentarily here by these leaders. And when they caught the two of Hank Middleton, that's when Josh Metallic here, along with Jeremy Jeffries, they've decided to get that inside line. Go ahead, we got a wreck. Big wreck involving the 39 of Josh Metallic, and there's a couple of others back here as well. Actually, there's more than a couple. Several drivers have piled into this one, including Mark Pagley in the 28. I saw Tony Fox involved. I think the 13 of Dave Melson may have been in it. There you see in the grass the 08 of Glenn Harris, and what looked like it was only going to be about a 2-3 car wreck. Well, the latter half of that lead pack came flying in, and we've got about maybe 7, 8, 9 drivers that got some pretty extensive damage out of that, including the pole sitter Bernie Mobbs.
You know, I'm not sure if you've heard this phrase, but sometimes the reaction's worse than the initial incident itself. And this definitely proved to be the case, because that initial incident probably could have isolated those two cars, but everyone's reaction to it of trying to get out of the way caused more incidents.
And what made it worse was it was up at the front, so you have more chances of all of those reactionary wrecks taking place. There's the 54 of Robbie Nisus. He's smoking coming to pit road. That's probably him done for the day, as there's a lot of damage internally in his Ford Mustang. Some of these guys might have gotten through with relatively minimal damage. The 33 and the 13 I know were involved. They look like they got through relatively unscathed. And there's the car that it really all started with, Josh Metallic in the 39. His car looks relatively clean as well. He may have actually just spun and may not have hit anything. We'll go back and take a look at what happened. As the race lead is now going to be in the hands of Bob Seminara. And I'm not certain, this might have actually been a wreck that happened right up at the front of the field, potentially in a battle for the race lead.
I mean, it sucks for Metallic because, I mean, he has not had a great time here in these first two races. A 21st place finish and a 17th place finish. Obviously, going to be marked somewhere probably back near the 20s and 30s here today.
Take a look here as everybody is coming to pit road. Well, I say that, Tim Knopfsker is actually going to stay out in the 088, but just about everybody is hitting pit lane. So this will make it interesting too as far as the fuel run, because these drivers were going to have to pit at least probably 3 times in this race. Now this may allow them to possibly stretch it to only 2 pit stops. And with the fact that Bernie Mobbs was leading this race and he was involved in this wreck, it says to me that this may have been a side-by-side battle between himself and Metallic, maybe a block gone wrong. Oh, it was. Actually, it wasn't Metallic that that got blocked. It was actually our current race leader, Knopfsker, that got blocked. We'll take a look and see what happened here. You'll notice, if you look on the left side of your screen, you see right there, Knopfsker makes the move to the inside, got his left sides down on the apron, and then he comes up and gets the 90 of Bernie Mobbs. Metallic's going to get the outside wall with the left front and left rear, but he keeps it going. However, there were quite a number of other drivers caught up, and we're going to take some more replay looks here at this incident. But to your point, Matt, a lot of the drivers that were tail end of the pack, they come flying in. And one thing that you and I both know as well, even though you have a lot of time to react, the car's not necessarily going to stop on a dime.
You know, really the most dangerous part about this blocking is it's not always the first 2 cars in line where it affects. It sometimes affects the cars further back because they're seeing what's going on ahead and they're expecting something to happen. So they're making adjustments or hitting the brakes a little bit. And the guys behind them just don't know that and they run them over.
And of course, too, this track can take them 3 and 4 wide and everybody trying different lanes to avoid the 90. And I think that was Hank Middleton that may have gotten spun off the nose of somebody there. But that's a tough break there for Bernie Mobbs in the 90, because you and I talked about the fact it was so good to see him up there at the front with him struggling in the points. I think he'll still be able to continue, but he definitely is going to have quite a bit of extensive rear-end damage. How is that going to affect him, do you think, for the remainder of this race?
Definitely with the front end damage, not going to get very much downforce. And honestly, there is a chance where he may have actually damaged the cooling system of that vehicle. So honestly a really bad situation for Bernie Mobbs. I mean, in the first 2 races, he started on pole in 6th place and he finished 30th and 35th. So, I mean, that is just a big hit for him.
There you see how the secondary wreck kind of started. Hank Middleton, who was already a lap down, looks like he got a little bit of help from the 62 of Ronald Luzier. And you see right there, there's Paglia still there. There's Dante Ricci as well in the 84. I think he got through, and I believe that is the 26 down there on the apron with some pretty extensive damage of Elisor. So, if I'm tallying it up here correctly, we had upwards of maybe 10 to 12 drivers that got caught up in this wreck. And that was on, I believe it was lap 9, very early on for a wreck to be taking place here. And a lot of drivers going to be suffering some pretty ill results because of it. Now, Tim Nofsker stayed out. However, he apparently came to pit road the following lap. So the race lead is actually going to cycle back around to the driver that was the leader at the time and is going to re-inherit the lead, that being the 712 of Bob Seminara. Now, we didn't really give the points breakdown coming into this race because obviously we were trying to fill in all the preliminary stuff before we went green, but we mentioned Grant Wesley and Joe DeSpirito, the 2 previous winners. They're tied for the points lead. Donnie Garrett, who qualified up inside of the top 10, but then kind of faded back in the 77, he's only 8 points back. Race leader Bob Seminara is 4th in points, 10 points back. Alan Martin currently 5th, 13 back. 15 back and 6th is Brian Schilling. Jeremy Jeffries is currently sitting 7th. He's 19 points back. 8th is Hank Middleton, who I believe, I don't know, he got a piece of that incident, so I don't know if he would necessarily be one of the free pass cars. 2 drivers get back on the lead lap with each caution, so we'll have to double check on that, see if he's back on the lead lap or not. But he is 8th in the points, 21 points back. Terry Bombard 9th, 22 points back. And David Lawson, who's running a really cool paint scheme tonight. I want to actually look at that scheme in a moment. He is currently 10th in points, 24 points back. So the fact the top 10 in points are 24 points separated, that just proves how close the point standings are early on in the season and how easy it is to pick up spots.
I will admit, I also will take a look at these paint schemes. They just seeing the talent of the painters in this league, it's amazing every time. Just seeing all the cool paint schemes around, I mean, it's just awesome.
Yeah, I love this scheme right here. This is obviously an Elliott Sadler scheme. I'm trying to remember what race it was Sadler drove at, the black and white M&M's car. But Dave Lawson was driving that, and I just had nostalgia when I saw it because I'd actually forgotten about that scheme. And that's a fun thing, too, is when you do these different leagues and you see these different schemes that are based off of things that actual NASCAR drivers drove. It has you go back in your memory bank. It has you go back and feel nostalgic about, wow, I'd forgotten that car was actually out there on the track.
Maybe reminiscing a little bit, but I mean, I know real life NASCAR seeing Casey Kane in the 95 machine pilot that throwback to himself. I mean, that brought me back to childhood.
Absolutely. So we have gotten the lights out on the pace car. We are going back green, which will be on lap 15 of 66. So we're going to have a total, if my math is correct here, of 52 laps to go. Bob Seminara is going to be the race leader. Chuck McClure is now going to be 2nd. Jeremy Jeffries in 3rd. Brian Schilling 4th. 5th is going to be Bob Dixon. 6th is Donnie Garrett. 7th is going to be Forgoing in the 95. Cervillo will line up in 8th rather. 9th is going to be Dave Lawson, and completing the top 10 is going to be Frank Rivard. First time we've mentioned him today up there inside of the top 10. We saw, Matt, 2 packs kind of break away from the rest of the field and ride towards the back. Do we see that again here, or do they now feel a little bit more comfortable to race up with the lead pack?
I'm not quite positive they wanted to separate by choice. It may have been someone just spun their tires or wasn't expecting the restart, and it kind of jacked up the pack in the back. We'll see this time if they do break off, but here's the thing. At Talladega, you never want to get too far from that main pack.
Looks like our 2 previous winners, Grant Wesley and Joe DeSpirito, are starting side by side. I think they're back in row 20. I'm sorry, not row 20, row 12 for this restart. As the green flag is back in the air, we're back underway as Bob Seminara, hoping Jeremy Jeffries is going to be able to push him out in front. He chose the inside line here, and we've seen that everyone wants to migrate to that middle line, so we'll see if Chuck McClure and Brian Schilling can get anything done up there on the top side. Looks like the momentum's on the bottom. Seminara is going to clear for the race lead.
I'm not sure about you, Seth, but realistically, the worst place in my mind to be is in the lead, since I'm pretty much powerless over my decisions.
And you saw right there, outside line prevails in that middle groove. We almost are 3 wide for the race lead, as that was Jeffries looking to the inside of Seminara. Seminara able to clear him, goes back to the bottom, but Chuck McClure with help from Brian Schilling up there to the front. And I remember Brian Schilling was up at the front in the first race of the season. He got caught up in a late race wreck, but he definitely has a fast machine here at Talladega, it seems like every week.
Schilling has definitely been on the up streak, finished 13th in that first race and second in the last week. He's definitely looking for redemption this week.
Want to update drivers that were caught up in the wreck that are still continuing on. There is Billy Elliser in the 26, still running, but he is way off the pace. Benoit Plord, I don't think he was involved in the wreck, but he's at the tail end of this field. Some other drivers that I know were involved, though. There's Mark Paglia in the 28, right now still in the lead draft. Looks like the 2 of Hank Middleton was not one of the free pass machines under that caution since he was caught up in the wreck. So he's currently a lap down in 39th, but he's still running. And I believe the pole sitter is actually still in this race as well. Thought I saw him just a moment ago. Yep, there he is. There's Bernie Mobbs. Currently 31st, but still on the lead lap. Looks like they did a pretty good job of getting that rear bumper banged back out, and looks like he may still be up to speed. But the tough thing right now for Bernie Mobbs is he was spending those first 10 or so laps completely out in front. Now he's got to work his way back through the field.
Here's where you've got to start thinking about your strategy. Where it's, hey, you've been mired back in the pack. Something's happened to you. Your car got a little bit of damage. Is it time to completely swap up your strategy and start working? Now it's like, hey, should I start trying to run fuel mileage here? Or should I try to start charging back through the pack immediately?
Well, right now, he doesn't have much choice. He's kind of boxed in as we're 3 wide. That's the 62 up top side of Ronald Luzier. He's put in the middle. Bob Dixon on the bottom. And the guy who led us to that last restart now was the one trapped in the middle, Bob Seminara, another driver that I'm noticing working his way up slowly to the front that we haven't mentioned yet today, is that number 72 of Jim Glode. Having a good run right now in that unsponsored red and black 72. Right behind him, you got the 43 of Richard Martin. So we're starting to now see some new faces up here at the front. And I'm pretty certain that when I went through the rundown of the top 10, I'm pretty sure that Burgoyne was rolling off from either 8th or 10th. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know if he might have made an unscheduled pit stop here, but he's now running a lap down and about to go another lap down to the race leaders. He's just now going into 1. They're into 1 now. So with us going back green on lap, I think it was lap 12, these drivers are now looking somewhere in the vicinity of about lap 29 to 32 when they would have to make a green flag pit stop. As Burgoyne, trying to get out of the way of the drivers there, goes up and into the outside wall, and you could see how the wall just kind of hugged him in. He couldn't get off of it. That's something these drivers have to worry about too. Now, Matt, we've seen them go single file at the front. They're going double wide through the field. They're going 3 wide occasionally, mostly when they're passing a lap machine. But I remember back in the first race that we did, they used that outer groove, and we saw where actually 2 drivers, if they were hooked up well enough, they could 2-car tandem in that outside line. Are we going to see that in the latter stages of this one?
As laps wind down, you definitely will see a bunch of differing strategies. Of course, you'll see them trying to tandem. I mean, we may even see tricks that we just haven't seen before because you're trying to use every little bit of competitive edge to get away from the front pack. I mean, you're just going to be holding your cards to the end of the race.
Bob Seminara and Jeremy Jeffries, they were actually just there trying to do a tandem. Now they've gotten broken up. Inside line trying to form. That's Bob Dixon, David Little down there as well, and Tony Fox in the 33, who did get a little piece of the first wreck, but he is continuing on. And Josh Metallic looks like the damage that he sustained, that hasn't affected him. He's currently up here now in the 15th position. And if the scoring was correct from what I just saw, he was 28th last time by. He just picked up 13 spots in the last lap, went from 28th up to 15th.
Jeez. Obviously, it's nice to see Tony Fox running. First race that we broadcasted, he was out for a provisional. Last race, he finished 34th, so obviously trying to reverse his lucks because he is 44th in the standings here at the moment.
Well, co-points leader Joe DeSpirito feels like it's time to go. That third lane is forming. You've got Jeffries, Metallic, DeSpirito up there as well. I believe that's also the 68. No, I'm sorry, that's the 60 of Perry Bond up there. Dante Risi's up there as well. They are taking it 3 wide, and ooh, their momentum's going to get killed just a little bit as the 62 of Lucy are moved up in front of Jeffries, but now that junior line is starting to form, everybody trying to run that third groove.
I mean, in my experience, realistically, you're always trying to look for a different line, seeing if you can create something, because if you can get that outside line going, if you can get a different line going from where the main guys are, if they notice you're faster, they'll start to swap over to you.
It's also easier to line up the bumpers for some reason going higher up through the corners here at Talladega. I don't know why, but when you're down that inside line, a lot of drivers have experienced that checkup, and that's why the inside line loses a lot of momentum, especially on corner exit. Oh, gracious, we almost had a wreck right there. Almost a little bumper grab from Lucier and Jeffries. Metallic almost spun the 8. We keep it green for the moment, and that's going to lose them momentum, but with the outside line, what they don't really gain on corner entry, they really gain on corner exit and their straightaway speed.
We're running that higher line, so we're carrying a lot more speed. I'll tell you, that higher line, nothing makes me more confident in that higher line than seeing a team car there, or seeing a teammate just saying, oh, hey, that's someone I know, or seeing a friend that's saying, like, hey, he won't abandon me, so I'll jump over for him.
Not sure how much there is in terms of alliance as far as manufacturers on that outside line, because you got a Dodge leading a Ford leading a Chevy. So you got all 3 manufacturers up there on that top side. And right now that outside line being led by Crivello's Mopar Dodge. Then you got Lawson's Ford and Lucier's Chevrolet. Now also jumping up there to lead that outside line is going to be 7th place Alan Martin. He's going to jump to the outside of Richard Martin. Don't know if there's any relation there. Right now, top 6 single file. They're double wide all the way back there. Whoa, we may have had a little contact up there at the front. That was Donnie Garrett getting out of shape after a bump from Frank Rivard. And I think he got into Schilling, who then got into race leader McClure. We nearly had a wreck up there with the top 4, and they're only running single file.
Definitely getting dicey here, but these guys got to remember, we're on lap 24.66. You got at least a good part of the race here left, and you got to make sure you have a car to finish it with.
Absolutely. I mean, these guys, are they racing to the first round of green flag pit stops, or are they racing to the second caution? As Grant Wesley is now working his way up to the front, the season opening winner. He's got the previous winner, Joe DeSpirito, right there behind him as well. These two running with the Hendrick font on their cars. They're both Chevrolets. I don't know if they're necessarily teammates, but it seems like the two of them have been in the same vicinity all race long, whether it be currently up here inside the top 10 or at the back of the pack.
I will tell you, nothing scares me more as a driver than seeing someone who has won a race at the track previously, because, hey, they know how to get it done. And here's the thing, depending on what kind of cushion they have in points, they're more willing to try dangerous moves.
Absolutely. I mean, you have a points gap, and you know that, if you end up wrecking out, you may still keep the points lead, or at least still be in the vicinity of the points lead. You're right, you'd be more inclined to try and make a more aggressive move. Of course, remember, Grant Wesley was just right place, right time 2 weeks ago when he won the race. He was running at the time, I think it was in the 4th position coming off of turn 4. He made a move for the race lead. There was a wreck that involved at least 3 of the top 4. Caution came out, race ended under yellow, and Wesley was the one who won the battle to the line. So we'll see if these drivers will be able to keep it green to the finish here as Chuck McClure continues to show the way. That 17 car, he may not be running up there in the point stands right now, but he's been running up at the front all day. I don't think that 17 has fallen out of the top 5 this entire 26, now going on to 27 laps.
Yeah, I will agree with that. Also, to answer your question earlier, Richard Martin and Alan Martin, they are, Richard is the father and Alan is the son. So, I mean, you always got to think a little bit of competitive edge there when the son's trying to beat the father.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you think to the Earnhardts, there's nothing better than beating your dad in a race. So we'll see if those two get back in the same vicinity here, as it looks like Richard, for the moment, has the 5th position. Allen has actually fallen back on that outside line, outside of the top 10, somewhere around the 12th position. As things have settled out a little bit up here at the front, they're still racing side by side further back here in the pack. That's where you have Jim Glued in the 72, Jeremy Jeffries in the 8. But for the most part, all the 3-wide racing we saw about 2-3 rows deep, that settled back out to side-by-side racing. So to your point, realizing how early on it still is in this race, I think cooler heads have prevailed for the moment.
Yeah, they just have to realize that, oh, man, it looked like they were getting a little bit loose there in the back, but obviously you just got to let cooler heads prevail, just stay calm, because once you guys start getting very erratic, I mean, that's when mistakes and accidents start happening.
Tell you what else is making me oh, did someone just blow up? Oh, we had a wreck. It's going to be the 62 around. He's going to collect Perry Bond in the 60. And we got more spinners further back there. The 27 is around. The 08 is collected. I think someone blew up, but I'm not sure. I saw smoke. Jeffrey Elliott's involved, as well as Dante Risi. Andre Mangan is involved as well. I'm sorry, McGoing. Mike Rogers as well in the 011. I don't see anyone smoking now. I don't know if maybe someone got their left sides down on the apron and it caused smoke, but I saw some smoke before we eventually saw the 62 of Ronald Luzier go around. So we'll have to see what happened here. And this was just when we were starting to close in on what would have been the first round of green flag pit stops.
Definitely very convenient timing. Those guys up front are breathing a deep sigh of relief, and probably some of the guys in the back who've missed that are also breathing a deep sigh of relief.
Well, there's no doubt everybody's going to be on pit road at some point here under this caution. Some may stay out to try and lead a lap and get themselves some bonus points. But we're going to look and see what happened here. I'd love to know where that smoke I saw came from, because this isn't iRacing. It's not where a car disappears, they reappear, and there's a little smoke cloud. So let's take a look here and see. We're going to keep it focused on the 62 of Ron Luzier, and we'll see if he gets his left sides maybe down on the apron, which causes the smoke. Oh, no! The 712 hit the brakes in front of him. We talked about that checkup on the outside, and I believe it was Bob Seminara getting on the brakes that caused Luzier to react. When he slowed up, he got hit from behind, and that's what caused the whole chain reaction wreck. Very seldom do you see a driver get on the brakes going into the corner. Normally they lift, they coast it in, they half throttle it, but never really see someone hit the brakes.
And that's the thing, when you hit the brakes like that, I mean, at that speed, you don't have any reaction time. You saw he tried to go high and tried to give him a little bit of room, but behind, just no room.
We're going to see here what happened to Andre McGoin. There you see the wreck. Oh, wow. Big wreck further back there. There's Pribnow around. 08 of Glenn Harris as well, but there was a bigger hit further back there, and I think that might have been Mike Rogers, who I think he got into, might have been the 84 of Dante Risi. And then I think the 13 came flying in of Dave Melson as well. So, actually, I think the 13 never slowed down. We're going to look here from the 84 of Dante Risi and see what he saw going into turn 3. Oh, yeah, right there. Mike Rogers, when he hooked off of the back of the 62, it sent him up into Risi and just nowhere for the 13 to go. And that was also, I believe, the 056 of Jeffrey Elliott that got involved as well. And I'm pretty sure that this league runs on realistic damage, and with the fact that Mike Rogers and Dante Risi both went end over end on their roof, that could pretty much be their evening over.
Man, just looking at back, I mean, that's the most dangerous thing as a driver, just going in the corner. And hey, when you have to check up or make a quick change, you know, obviously your first instinct is look ahead of you, but your second instinct needs to be look behind you, because just because you were able to check up doesn't mean everyone else is going to be able to.
And it looks like we are continuing to have drivers cycle around here as far as making pit stops. Ronald Lucier stayed out and led a lap. Now he is on pit road. That's going to turn the race lead over to the 056 of Jeffrey Elliott, who was caught up in that wreck. I think we'll probably see him on pit road this next time by, as he was caught up in that incident. I think he'll be coming to pit road for damage repair, which should turn the race lead over to Brian Schilling. Now, at the point of that caution coming out, only one driver was off the lead lap. That was the 95 of Burgoyne. He was 2 laps down, so I think he'd be the only driver to get the free pass. We do have 2 drivers out of the race as well that we should document. The 54.
Just to interrupt you,
go ahead.
damage is actually on moderate tonight.
Oh, damage is on moderate. Okay, so then the 84 probably and the 011 should be able to continue. Question is, how up to speed will they be, though? Because even with moderate damage, when a car flips over.
I mean, typically when you get roof damage with whoever it's realistic or moderate, I mean, that's a lot of your speed, a lot of the downforce going away. So,
yeah, NR's very temperamental in that respect. Dependent on how significant the damage is, if you can stay up in the draft and have someone pushing you, you can still stay up to speed, but there's a very fine line between whether that's going to work or whether you're going to lose the draft completely. So we'll keep tabs on those, but 2 drivers are out of the race at this time as well. The 26 of Elliser has gone to the garage area, and then we also saw Robbie Nisus smoking after the first incident. He is going to be out of the race as well in the 54 McDonald's machine. So 2 drivers at this point in time are officially out of the race. Don't know if we'll have any more after this incident. Didn't look like any contact was terminal, especially with you saying that it was moderate damage. So we will see if indeed drivers that were involved in that second caution will be able to continue on. Like the 056 is going to come to pit road. The 95 stays out there for going. Now, he's already the free pass car. I don't know if he's able to take the free pass and a wave around to get himself back on the lead lap. But it looks like that's what he is trying to do here. Unless it's the system where if you're the free pass car, you wait until the lights go out, you go around, and you get the lucky dog that way. That might also be what he is going to be doing. So it looks like Brian Schilling is going to be the race leader as we are nearing the halfway point of this race. We are currently on lap 32 of 66. When we complete lap 33, we will be halfway home. Lights are out, tap the pace car. We're doubling them up, so it's going to be Brian Schilling, the race leader. Frank Rivard in second. Third is going to be Donnie Garrett. Fourth, Jim Glued. Fifth is going to be Richard Martin. Sixth, Jeremy Jeffries. Seventh, Grant Wesley. Eighth is Cervello. Ninth is going to be Despirito. And completing the top 10 is going to be Dave Lawson. Dave Little will line up in 11th. 12th, I think, is supposed to be Seminara. He's got to catch up there. 13th would be Bob Dixon. 14th would be Josh Metallic. Alan Martin would be 15th. 16th, waiting for them to come into view, would be Hank Middleton, who is back on the lead lap now. Tim Novsker and Bernie Mobbs would then be the next 2 cars in 15th and 16th. 17th would be Terry Bombard. 18th is Hank Middleton. So there was some miscommunication there of who was where. 19th place is Wiley Coate. And Bernie Mobbs is actually going to restart in 20th. So they got themselves confused and they got me confused. So I completely botched that entire top 20 rundown. But go a little bit further through the field here before we go green. Perry Bond, 21st. 22nd, it's going to be Jack Dussault. 23rd, Cy Jones. 24th, Stefan Martel. 25th, Jessica Shelton. Mark Paglia in 26th. 27th is going to be Andre Mangion. I'm sorry. I keep messing that up. 28th is going to be Glenn Harris. 29th, Dave Melson. 30th is going to be Wade Pribnow. 31st is where we find Ronald Lucier. 32nd, Mike Rogers. Possible pit road penalty for Chuck McClure, who was the race leader before that caution came out. He's going to restart back here in 31st. Benoit Plard back here as well with Tony Fox, Jeffrey Elliott, Dante Risi, and Burgoyne getting the free pass. I don't know if he's back on the lead lap or not. We'll find out in a moment. But those are the drivers that are still running as the green flag is back in the air right at the halfway point at Talladega. Ryan Schilling and Donnie Garrett going to move into first and second with the 43 of Richard Martin. Now into third, Grant Wesley and Joe DeSpirito, though. We talked about them at the start of the program. They were in the rear of the field. Then we looked at them again. They were in the middle of the pack. Now they're up inside the top 10 trying to crack the top 5.
Man, talking about Donnie Garrett's been on a roll as of recent. Both of the races he's finished fourth. I wonder if he's going to repeat today or maybe he'll aim for third.
Oh, Joe DeSpirito, little contact there as he's on the apron. He'll bring it back up the track. Don't know if he had a little contact or not. They're 4 wide on the front straightaway heading for the start-finish line. They settle it to 3 wide. They settle it back to double wide. But Jeremy Jeffries was way up against the wall trying to give room. After the 24 lost his momentum, everybody started stacking up. So good job to them. Oh, caution is out, though. We've had a wreck apparently further in the back. And it's Jessica Shelton smoking on the inside of turns 1 and 2. I'm sorry, that's 3 and 4. Looks like also Dave Melson in the 13 may have been involved.
I swear, our sponsor is like a curse for some people.
You put Flatout Racing Network on the car, and you have a 50% chance of a 99% chance that you're going to finish the race. So Donnie Garrett's going to lead us back to the caution. It is frozen field when the caution comes out, but they do obviously race back to the line in the positions that they were. Going back to your point there about Donnie Garrett as well, I mean, he's the highest up there in the point stands without a win, third in points, 8 points back. So this may be his opportunity here today, but Grant Wesley and Joe DeSpirito up there hounding, trying to get their second wins of the season. We'll go back and see what happened here to Melson in the 13 and Shelton in the 94. Looks like it may have just been a 2-car incident, but obviously with the 94 smoking, it was obviously a hard impact incident.
I mean, there's 2 really hard objects you could hit on either side of the track and a few obstacles in between, so, I mean, any possibility.
And actually, it was a mechanical problem for the 94, right on the restart.
I wonder if it may have been a misshift.
I don't know. We're going to look here. Shelton and the 94 were just at this point getting ready to go back green. And immediately when she goes to the accelerator, the engine goes. Now, I'm assuming the caution came out for this. However, she did keep it down the apron, so I don't know if that necessarily would have brought out a yellow. I want to find the 13 as well of Dave Melson because I saw him spun around. We're going to look when we come here to the back straightaway and see if the caution lights are on or not. At this point, they are still green, so I don't think that the caution came out for Shelton. I think it was for whatever happens here to the 13 car later on.
Yeah, I'd definitely say Shelton may have just misshifted down and may have thought she was going for the up key and accidentally hit the down.
The 00 there of Wayne Pribnow behind the 13 car. Still, you can see, still the caution lights are green at this point. So the smoking 94 did not bring out the yellow. And the 13 disappears. That might have actually been what caused the caution here. I don't know if he's going to reappear or not. If he does reappear, he may reappear into somebody else's car. Yep, there it was right there.
Oh no.
Not sure. That might have been the 87 of Benoit Plord that he may have reappeared in front of, and his car spinning around. And that is actually what brought out the caution. A driver with connection issues that completely disappeared, reappeared, and spun around. Otherwise, we probably would have remained green. I mean, what an interesting number of circumstances there on that lap. You had a car that blew up on the restart, and you had a car that warped out, bringing out the caution.
I admit that was some fast spinning there. I'm not sure how that one happened.
See if we can, real quick, I'm pretty sure the car he made contact with was the 87. We're going to see, since obviously the 13 was blinked out, we're going to go back and we're going to see what the 87 saw from his point of view. And if indeed it was him that the 13 car reappeared either in or in front of. Okay, apparently it was not him. thought it was a green car that was behind 13 when the 13 reappeared. Let's see if we can find out who it was. For the 13, when he reappears, there's really nobody in his vicinity. No, I don't know who he hit, to be honest with you, because when we're looking at it from this angle, you can see the 87's already around the outside. I don't know if maybe the 13 just lost it all by himself, perhaps. Maybe he was trying to get out of the way of everybody, since on his end, everyone disappears, so he's trying to go down where they wouldn't be, and maybe he got his right sides down the apron. That might have been what spun him around. Well, I remember back in the first race, I think we had 2 cautions in that one, not counting the caution that ended the race. And both of those cautions came out for incidents of drivers trying to get onto pit road. So far here today, pit road has not come into play in terms of green flag racing, because these drivers have either been right on the cusp of making a green flag pit stop and then the caution comes out, or we've had these incidents here where caution comes out not too long after the restart.
I mean, you got to think with these cautions, these guys have to be getting a little bit more antsy, and you got to think what that's going to lead to.
Especially when you think, too, if the calculations are right, these drivers are really looking at a one-stop race now from here to the checkered flag. So the question of whether or not that's going to be under green or under caution, we're going to have to wait and see. I think another benefit, if you think about it, too, we talked about top of the program about every single race is at Talladega Superspeedway. So you may have a game plan coming into this race, but we kind of consider Daytona and Talladega a wild card race. As long as you're in the field, you've got a chance to win. It's just about positioning and right place, right time. But I think another thing that benefits these drivers going to the same racetrack week after week after week, it helps you to perfect something like green flag pit stops. You're not going to a mile-and-a-half track one week and then a super speedway the next week where it's entirely different on how you approach pit road. You're able, as the season goes on, to continue to perfect on green flag pit stops, and you're kind of learning Talladega as you go along.
I will reason with that, and you've got to think here. You may come into Talladega with a game plan, but having a game plan at Talladega usually never goes according to plan. Unless, you hang in the back of the pack and wait for everyone to wreck. I mean, that's a plan, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Because when you think about it, you have a plan, but there's another 30 plus guys out there that have an entirely different plan. So your plan may not in any way correlate with their plan, and a lot of times that's where we see these wrecks take place, is miscommunication, drivers going for the same piece of real estate. I believe with this caution coming out that Burgoyne is now going to be back on the lead lap. So the 95 will be 36th, last car on the lead lap at this point in time. And we should have all drivers running now on the lead lap for hopefully the completion of this race. But I don't know. We've gotten past halfway. We've worked 3 cautions. Something says to me that with the aggressiveness that's going to be kicking up even higher here in the second half, I don't think we've seen our last yellow.
I mean, you got to think it's giving the guys here in the way back who already are damaged. It's giving them hope. They're saying, hey, go race up there. Go wreck it up. Trust me. Go destroy your stuff. We'll see if we're still running.
And that's why when you're at a track like Talladega, even if you do have damage, to your point, you got to stay in the race, because Talladega is a race of attrition. You never know where the big one's going to strike. We saw a wreck take place up there at the very front of the field for our first caution. So as long as you keep your car in the race and guys ahead of you run into issues, every position you pick up is a point. And with the system we've got here, every point matters.
And I just looked at the chat. The chat sums it up perfectly. I mean, it's the same track, but it's just a different race every week. I mean, there's just different strategies that come into everything, and maybe just different track conditions, or may just be differing personalities, or hey, one guy's got an advantage over the other one for one day.
Hey, you may go green the entire race one week, and then you may have cautions the next week, and you've got to vary your strategy because of that. As Frank Rivard's going to be the race leader as we get ready to go green on lap 39 of 66. Crivello is going to line up alongside of him, so you've got a couple of Dodges pacing the field right now. And then you've got Bob Dixon and Jack Dussault there with Andre McGoyne completing the top 5 as the 35 waits, accelerates, and looks like he got a little bit of a gap between himself there and Bob Dixon. I think he would have liked to have had the 143 still with him. Ooh, little contact as Rivard tried to tuck up in front of the 56 of Crivello. Crivello does let him in, but not before the two had a little bit of contact with the left rear and the right front.
I think that may have been a, hey, I don't appreciate what you did, but I'll give it to you this time.
They settle it out for the moment. Here comes Bob Dixon with a big run on the bottom, help from Burgoyne. And how about the 62 there of Lucier? I, for a moment, just blanked out. He had that spin back on the second caution, and he's back up here inside of the top 5 now. 3 wide further back. I think that's the 57 of Stefan Martel that's been put in the sucker hole. No friends as Dave Lawson goes around the outside. Metallic around the outside. Middleton there as well. On the inside line, you've got Pulsiter Bernie Mobbs trying to work his way back to the front, following in the tire tracks of Terry Bombard. And now Dave Lawson in the 18 gets put in the middle. That third line is forming, though. Josh Metallic. If I remember correctly, he was one of the guys that was leading that third lane 2 weeks ago as well. He loves that top side.
You know, certain guys just have their own preferred way around the track. Some guys are just, hey, the fastest way around the track is always the bottom, but others are saying, hey, I mean, maybe just a different route, but I can fast as you.
Oh, we're 3 wide up at the front as well. 4 wide as Metallic almost went down, and I think that was the 87. They keep it together for the moment, but up front, 3 wide for, I think that's 4th place. Donnie Garrett on the bottom. Frank Brevard, who led us back to the green. He's in the middle. Bob Dixon up on the top side. We're 3 wide, about 6-7 rows deep from 4th place on back. And out of all of that, Andre Burgoyne goes to the race lead with a push from Lucier. Donnie Garrett, though, on the inside line. Big push from Grant Wesley and Joe DeSpirito. Big momentum for the top 3 in points.
Got to think this is a big game changer here. Something happens, all 3 of them get taken out. That's a big opening.
Well, I have a feeling that the storm is brewing. It's just a matter of when the lightning strikes here, because they are still 3 wide, 3 rows deep at the front. They're 3 wide, about 4 rows deep towards the rear of the field. But up front, you've got 3rd in points, leading the co-points leader, single file. Then you've got the 43 of Richard Martin and the 088 of Tim Knopfsker. Right now, your top 5 now make it 6 as Bombard clears for that spot. Their single file, wreck in the back. There they go. We got an airborne car. Middleton up in the air. Another car flipping. That's the 36 of Jack Dussault. We got another car upside down as well. That's Mark Pegley in the 28 as his Motorcraft Ford starts barrel rolling down the back straightaway. The big one has certainly struck here on lap 42.
You know, I was about ready to jinx it all and say, man, just look at all the talented drivers up here. But, I mean, man, that was just unfortunate.
First car I saw snap out of shape was the 87 of Benoit Plord, and then at least 3 cars, Paglia in the 28, the 2 of Middleton, and the 36 of Dussault, all got some air. The 2 car actually did a blowover, and amazingly enough, looks relatively unscathed. That car may have just gone airborne and then landed back on its wheels. And there is Paglia's machine, but oh my goodness, we are starting to see the laps tick down, the aggression kicks up, and you just got the feeling that with them racing 3 wide all the way back from 3rd back to the rear of the field, something was going to have to give.
Man, that definitely sucks for Mark, though. I mean, his first race finished 38th after he qualified 3rd. Last race started 5th, finished 11th, really hoping to pull it in the top 10 this time, and unfortunately just an accident happened.
Yeah, when Talladega has your number, sometimes there's nothing you can do about it. And that's one of the things about super speedway racing. You don't necessarily have to be the cause, but if you're in the vicinity, you can certainly be caught up in the effect. And we're going to look and see here what happened to start this. I think this was the area right here. Watch the white and green John Deere Dodge on the bottom of Benoit Plord. I think he's where this is all going to start. Contact right there. Oh, no, it actually started with Middleton. He came down into, I think that was the 4 of Brian Schilling, and he was up topside 3 wide, so he came down and blocked the track. There you see the 33 of Fox involved, the 95 who just got back in the lead lap before Burgoyne gets caught up in this. Not a whole lot of damage, however. He saw the air that the 2-car got. He then went down and nosed it a little bit into the inside wall. There you see the 28 of Paglia. We're about to look and see how he got collected up in this. And the other driver that was up and over was the 36 of Jack Dussault.
And just looking at that, you just see how many people just get caught as bystanders. I mean, they just had no part in this, and unfortunately, just something out of their control that they just don't even know about just comes out of nowhere.
And with this happening on the back straightaway, there's just nowhere for these guys to go. You've got about 2-3 cars that are airborne in front of you. You got to pick a lane and hope that it works. And Paglia up on driver's side, slides along the outside retaining wall. The car does a couple of barrel rolls there as well. And we're actually going to look and see what happened with Dussault as well in the 36 to see what actually caused him to go airborne. I don't know if he maybe got hooked around by the 2 of Middleton when he came down across the track, perhaps. He was the other car that we saw against the inside wall there.
I just still cannot believe how that 2-car just took off.
Yeah, I can't either.
Man, it just turned around and it just almost took off into the air.
From what I remember in the first race, too, we had a car that actually got airborne to the point where all 4 wheels came off the racing surface, but the car landed back down on the ground. And I've never actually seen a car float like that before.
I don't know whether to call it luck or skill.
Maybe a little bit of both. Take a look here and see with Dussault, and yep, right there. After the 2 comes down into him, I'm actually really surprised that the 36 got air. That didn't look like a kind of wreck where you would see a car go airborne. Because Middleton comes down and gets him in the right rear quarter panel, and then I think he got a little bit of extra help from Chuck McClure in the 17, but it didn't look like the kind of spin where you'd expect to see the 36 go up and over. Of course, a lot of things come into play. If you have your roof flap deployed, sometimes that'll send you airborne. The grip of the track can sometimes play a factor into that as well. But as we're working our 4th caution of the evening, closing in on 20 laps to go, Bob Dixon is now your race leader as we are waiting on the pace car to give us the 1 to green. Like Richard Martin would line up in 2nd, Tim Nofsker in 3rd, Donnie Garrett 4th, Grant Wesley in 5th. 6th right now would be Bernie Mobbs, 7th Terry Bombard, 8th Joe DeSpirito, 9th Josh Metallic, and Brian Schilling, who I think was the one that Metallic went around off the nose of, would line up in 10th. Bob Seminara in 11th. 12th is Andre Burgoyne. Wiley Coate now up here in 11th, or I'm sorry, make that 13th. He was one of those drivers that was up on the top side with Metallic, trying to make that 3rd groove work. 14th place would be Ronald Lucier and Frank Rivard right now in the 15th position. You see the 13 of Dave Melson. I believe he is a lap down. He is the free pass car. I think he's the only car 1 lap down, so he'd be the only one that would get the free pass here. And would put us with 37 cars still running, all 37 on the lead lap.
Shout out to Tim in the 088. I mean, here's the thing, like last few weeks, I mean, he's just been hanging there. He's 12th in points currently, starts 13th, finishes 16th, starts 10th, finishes 14th. With him being inside the top 5, I mean, that's really looking up for him.
I might be not correctly remembering, but I think he was up there in the top 5 in the closing stages of the first race of the season. And was one of those drivers that I mentioned that got involved in that wreck through the tri-oval that Grant Wesley was able to get through and take the win. So, yeah, Nofsker's got himself a fast machine, obviously. He runs up at the front. He just hasn't had a whole lot of luck come his way. And I see some of these guys ducking onto pit road, like Bob Dixon. I think that was Schilling as well in the 4. I love the call they're doing right now, because when we go back green, the lights are going to go out. We're going to be going back green somewhere in the vicinity of 20 laps to go. And remember, the fuel window is about 18 to 21 laps. So if these guys save enough and we manage to go green to the end, those guys, we know for certain, would be able to make it without having to come to pit road again. And this series does not do green-white checkers, so they don't have to plan for an overtime either. As it looks like Richard Martin is going to choose the outside line here for the restart after Dixon came to pit road. Knopfsker will line up to the inside in second, with Donnie Garrett, Grant Wesley, and Bernie Mobbs up there in that fifth position. Got involved in the first wreck after he tried to throw a block on, I think it was Knopfsker, who's going to be restarting up here in the top 5 as well. Got a little bit of damage to the rear. They fixed it. He's now back up in the top 5. We're looking to see if someone can maybe go coast to coast. That is such a difficult thing to do at a super speedway, especially with the up and down day that Bernie Mobbs has had.
I mean, some of these guys just really thrive off of the roller coaster days. I mean, some days it's just all clear cut for you. You have no problems. Other days, I mean, it's cut out for you just to have a bad day, and other days it's just make it up as you go.
I don't know about these guys up here at the front. They all came to pit road back on lap 43, which would, to my calculations, put them somewhere in the vicinity of 2.5 to maybe 3 laps short. You can see right there, I don't know if you're noticing the 088 bogging down. They are clutching. They are saving fuel here under pacing to try and make sure they're able to make it the rest of the way. I think what they're thinking right now is track position over everything, just in case we have another wreck. And they're trying to save as much fuel as they possibly can while maintaining that track position.
You know, a guy that I'd really look to break through here in the next few weeks would have to be Donnie Garrett. I mean, here's the thing. He's been almost matching most of Grant and Joe's progress here. So, I mean, I really like to see him break out here in the next few weeks.
Yeah, he just doesn't have a win. Obviously, you get some bonus points for a win, so that's why he finds himself third in points rather than up there battling for the points lead in closer proximity to Wesley and DeSpirito. But green flag in the air, and it looks like Martin and Wesley had themselves pretty well timed there. Wesley accelerated just before the 43. He's going to push the 43 of Martin out in front. Now, does Martin stay up there on the top side with the 88? Does he tuck down in front of Knopfsker? Doesn't have a choice. Knopfsker alongside his door heading through turn 2. So if necessary, these guys would be racing to the checkered flag if we don't see another caution, but we saw them 3 wide, several rows deep on that last run. Something tells me we're going to see a lot more of that here in these final 20 laps as that inside line starting to prevail a little bit there. Knopfsker with help from Donnie Garrett, big push heading through the tri-oval, trying to get themselves clear into P1 and P2. And here comes that third lane. That's Chuck McClure up topside with Brian Schilling. Remember, Schilling was one of the drivers that came to pit road. He's definitely good on fuel, but they're now 4 wide as Alan Martin tried to move up there in front of them. He killed their momentum, and now he'll move into the middle line as, boy, McClure and Schilling are not going to be too thrilled about that. And that's something I've seen too, is that outside line gets some good momentum. Everybody sees it. They want to go up there as well, but they're running 3 to 4 to 5 miles per hour slower, and they just kill the momentum of that outside line.
I mean, it's the whole I don't want to be left out mentality. I mean, here's the thing. Last thing you want to see your competitors just go blow by you. So, I mean, obviously you need to find some way to stop the momentum.
How about Dante Risi there in the 84? If you're just joining us, he was caught up in a wreck over in turn 3 where the car did at least 4 barrel rolls. That car is still up to speed, still up in the lead pack. That car looks like it wasn't even involved in a wreck, and he's up inside the top 20, still with a shot of maybe winning this thing, depending on what happens here in these final 18 laps. Back up at the front, though. They're 3 wide now. That is for the 5th position. McClure up topside, Metallic in the middle, Pulsiter, Bernie Mobbs on the bottom. They're 3 wide, 3 rows deep, almost 4 rows deep. Up front, they're side by side for the lead. Knopfsker continues to try and lead that inside line against Richard Martin on that outside line. Neither lane gave it an inch, but that third lane's got a lot of momentum, and McClure is trying to make it a 3-dog fight at the front. Contact as Schilling almost got the wall there, crossing the start-finish line. And I don't know, Matt, that queasy feeling in my stomach starting to come back from what we saw on that last run. It looks like it's starting to happen here again, and you're just getting that question in the back of your mind again of, Not when, or not if, but when.
I mean, I know everyone feels it coming. I mean, it's just really where you're going to position yourself to avoid this. And, I think you can ask people in the past, there's nowhere perfect where you can avoid this because it's just random where it happens.
Oh, we got it right there. It is. There's Bob Dixon involved. Frank Rivard, we got another car airborne. That's Dixon again in the 143. Several cars scattering through the infield grass. As caution's going to fly yet again. Jim Gould, Dave Lawson, Lucier in the 62 collected up. There's Rivard, who was up and into the wall with Dixon to start that wreck as he now leaves the scene of the accident as he spun into the infield grass. And there's the 143 as we can bring our blowover total now up to 3 as he, as well as Hank Middleton and Jack Dussault, have all found air here today at Talladega. Now, what's the old moniker, Matt? Cautions breed cautions? I think we're seeing that right now.
Really, all we're doing is just open the door for another caution to pop up here eventually.
Dixon was on the outside 3 wide. That was Martell on the bottom, Middleton in the middle. A little irony there. Wow. It almost looked like Dixon. I don't know if he moved up to give room to the 2 or if he just overcorrected coming off the corner, but it's like that car just turned to the right coming off of turn 4. Go back and look from another angle, but that was really strange.
Might be a little bit of arrow working with that or a little bit of netcode.
Don't think he had any contact. We'll look here and see again. Rivard, but yeah, I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. From that angle, we can see there was a little bump out of the corner, courtesy of Frank Rivard, that might have sent that STP Ford Mustang around. And there you see Luzier, there's Lawson, there's Gould, and Rivard is somewhere here in the infield grass. There he is. As he's the one that bumped the 143 and gets collected up in this as well. Surprisingly, with that happening in the tri-oval, we only had maybe 5 cars I can see that got involved in the wreck. I would have thought that, in most areas, the tri-oval would be one of the more difficult places to avoid.
You'd think.
But Bob Dixon almost kind of pulling a Hank Middleton there, where the car went up in the air, lands back on all 4 wheels, doesn't barrel roll. Car from my end looks relatively good, still may be up to speed, still may be competitive. And we will see if he can get himself back up here to the front. But that's another thing too, with these cautions coming out and drivers getting involved in them, with the limited number of laps that we are starting to reach, these drivers that get involved in the wreck, yeah, they may not have damage, but they lose out on all that track position, and it's not going to be easy for them to make it up in the short amount of time that they have.
I mean, you got to think it's just a little bit of too little, too late, or do you think there's still a shot?
Really all depends on what happens up ahead of them. I mean, we know that Bob Dixon has a really fast car. We've seen him be able to work his way from the back up to the front here today, but task's just going to be a little bit more difficult for him. I do not think there were any lap machines, so we do not have any free pass cars. I believe 37 cars still run and all on the lead lap. And I'll tell you who this caution actually is a big break for, too. All those drivers that came down the first lap that the pits were open under the last caution, because now they can clutch some more here under these pacing laps, and I would assume that they should be good to go on fuel now if they can save enough. If we had gone green to the finish, might have been a little bit of a question mark, especially with whoever was out in front for a majority of that last green flag run, whether they could make it or not. But I think now this puts everybody under the blanket, knowing that they can make it on fuel, and they don't have to come to pit road any longer, except for maybe some of those guys at the back that might want to go for fresh tires if we get another late caution, or especially those that would have to come to pit road for crash damage repair. We have to remember, too, that we run about 3 or 4 caution laps. So these drivers technically would be racing for the completion of lap 62 or the completion of lap 63, because if the caution comes out at any point from then to the finish, race ends under caution. That's how Grant Wesley was able to take the checkers back in the first race of the season. So, these guys, obviously, they're of the mentality of race to the white flag and then whatever happens, happens. But they got to bear in mind that there is the possibility this race ends under caution. They have to have themselves up there at the front for that possible scenario. Again, Richard Martin's going to choose the outside line for this restart. He had Grant Wesley pushing him on the last restart, so apparently he liked what Grant did, giving him that bump just before the start-finish line. He's going to choose the outside line here, giving the inside line to Tim Nofsker. Then it'll be Donnie Garrett in third, Grant Wesley fourth, and Terry Bombard in fifth. Sixth place lining up is going to be Bernie Mobbs. Seventh, Chuck McClure, who's finally worked his way back up to the front after he lost a lot of track position after pit stops on the third yellow. Josh Metallic will be eighth. Joe DeSpirito in ninth. In the top 10 is going to be Brian Schilling. 11th, Dave Little. 12th is Bob Seminara. 13th, Jeremy Jeffries. 14th is going to be Fergoyne. 15th place is Alan Martin. Andre McGoyne in 16th, 17th, Hank Middleton, 18th, Stefan Martel, 19th, Glenn Harris, and completing the top 20 is Dante Risi. We're going to give you a full field rundown here as the lights should go out atop the pace car this time, as 21st will be Wade Pribnow, 22nd, Jeffrey Elliott, 23rd is Jack Dussault, 24th is going to be Crivello, 25th is Bob Dixon, still on the lead lap. Perry Bone in 26th, 27th, David Lawson, 28th, Cy Jones, 29th, Mark Paglia in 29th, I believe. Dave Melson in 30th. 31st is Tony Fox, 32nd, Jim Gould, 33rd, Ronald Lesueur. Benoit Plourde in 36th, 37th is Frank Rivard. Actually, nope, correct that. Actually, 34th is going to be Benoit Plourde. 35th will be Frank Rivard, and 36th will be Mike Rogers. So I believe we have another driver that is out of the race. I'm not certain who that would be, though. I'll look and see if I can figure out who is missing from the running order. We already know that Robbie Nisus is out. Jessica Shelton is out. And I believe the third driver could very well be the 28, actually, of Mark Paglia, I think, has taken his car to the garage area. We'll be able to tell here, courtesy of the running ticker in just a moment, if indeed it is the 28 that is out of the race as well, after he took that slide down the back straightaway and a little bit of a barrel roll down the back stretch as well. No, actually, no, Paglia is still in the race. I see the 28 back there, so I'm not certain who that third driver is that is out, but the ticker will tell you when it eventually scrolls by, as green flag's going to come back out here with a total of 12 laps to go. See Grant Wesley kind of hanging back there, waiting for when the 43 is going to accelerate, and he'll give him the bump to try and clear him past Tim Nofsker. Green flag is out, and Richard Martin did not get going. Now, obviously, the game dictates when the green comes out. I don't know if Tim Nofsker has to make sure the 43 is ahead of the start-finish line before him or not, but he was clearly ahead of Martin at the start-finish line. We'll have to see if that's a penalty or not. I don't know what the ruling is here in this league.
Have to check for any post-race penalties.
Well, it doesn't matter. Richard Martin on that outside line is going to pull ahead now with a bump from Grant Wesley, so any advantage Nofsker got there on the initial start went away by the time they reached the back straightaway. And talk about the comeback here. Bernie Mobbs, who was involved in the first caution of the day, from the lead got spun. He's back up here, third on that outside line, inside the top 10, trying to see if he can go pole to win here at Talladega.
I'll have to tell you, that's the worst feeling as a driver of getting ready to restart. You're all nervous, you're getting ready, and finally take off, and you realize the other guy just set you up. Because, hey, you just pulled out in front of everyone and left yourself like a sitting duck.
Well, it looks like right there we had no quarters given there, as Nofsker tried to move up in front of Richard Martin, couldn't do it. Donnie Garrett tried to move up and maybe side draft off the 43 as well, but that middle lane continues to prevail through the straightaways. However, through the corners, Nofsker and Donnie Garrett are making something happen, as we are too wide all the way through the field, from the very start of this field to the very tail end of it. 10 to go at Talladega, and we've seen 3 wide here already. We're going to see a lot more of it here in the closing stages of this race. And again, remember, there is every chance this race could end under yellows. So do these drivers take that in mind of when they start making their moves? We may end up seeing yet another caution before we even get to that point, as they were dancing around out of turn 2. Whoa, Bernie Mobbs making a move outside, then shoved it back in line in front of Josh Metallic, who did let him in. That's another thing too, Matt. You talked about these drivers making those aggressive moves. One thing that we know occurs here in Enter 2003 at the super speedways is bumper grab. It may look like you're clear on somebody, but you're not, and that's what can trigger a wreck as well.
Yeah, I'm sure that you've been on the receiving end of those a few times.
Many times.
Where we
and
just
and I've been the one
close.
that's caused many of them, so. As that inside line now again prevailing through 1 and 2. Looks like the turns 1 and 2 is really where Nofsker and his group are able to get lined up and get some good momentum. But again, you see that middle line, that outside line, gonna start pulling ahead again with Richard Martin in the 43. And it's just a matter of time too. Grant Wesley comes in co-points leader. Joe DeSpirito, who's the other driver currently leading the points, is mired back there, 5th car on that inside line. You know that Grant Wesley sooner or later is going to maybe think about making a 3rd line caution. We got a wreck in the back. I think that might have been the 72 of Jim Gould. That should bring out a yellow, and indeed it does. And this caution is going to come out and have us go back green, probably with about 4 laps to go. As Cy Jones, this is one way to get to the start-finish line, as he puts the thing in reverse, tries to slide it to the start-finish line that way, finally rights itself. I don't think the roof flaps were any too happy of him driving in reverse.
Just try and say hi to the fans.
There's Jim Gould. He's the car I saw spinning, the bright red 72. Jeffrey Elliott may have been involved in his second incident of the day as well. So we'll go back and see what happened. This was going into the tri-oval, and I think it's pretty safe to say that nobody is going to be coming to pit road, but you see right there, Tim Nofsker down on the apron, just trying to make sure he has enough fuel to make it to the end. This makes things really interesting, Matt, because like I mentioned, the possibility of this race ending under caution, these drivers, if we have a caution come out when we go back green, these drivers could be potentially looking at a green-white checkered in a way here, depending on when a caution falls in these final 5 or so laps.
I said it will start getting the crunch time here soon, and that's when you really start feeling the pressure of, hey, I've only got 4 laps to do what I should have done in 60. So, I mean, it kind of sets in there.
There you saw the incident. Stefan Martel looks like he got a little tight coming off the corner. Might have thought he was clear. He goes up the track into Jim Gould, who then into the wall and down into Cy Jones. Apparently, the 056 of Jeffrey Elliott was way back there. You see him there. He was just able to coast his way through the incident. Did not get involved at all. So a 2-car wreck puts us under the caution for the 6th time here tonight at Talladega, and sets us up for what is going to be a restart, I believe, within 5 laps to go. So, Matt, I want to go into your mind as a racer. If you are the 80...
Like, I don't know if you want that one, champ.
Yeah, we want it. We're gonna put this scenario out there to you. You're the 88 of Grant Wesley. You've already got a win. You're currently running ahead of the guy you came in tied for the points lead, Joe DeSpirito. You've been pretty committed on the last 2 restarts of pushing Richard Martin on these restarts. Do you stay committed to him, try and hope that he's going to lead you to a second place finish, or knowing what happened 2 weeks ago when he was in the right place, right time with that late caution to take the win under yellow, do you plan to make a move and take the win for yourself?
I mean, here's the thing. I've already got the win to fall back on. So there's nothing telling me that I have to go out there and just win the race. But obviously, here's the thing. If you leave the man in front of you, you've practically given up all of your shot to win. If you push him past the leaders, at least give him a shot, you have got your shot to win.
Well, Richard Martin comes into this race 11th in the point standing, so I believe he has led the most laps today. It's close between himself as well as Bernie Mobbs, who was out in front early on. I'm not sure who's led the most laps here today, but if he's able to get bonus points for leading the most laps, I mean, we are definitely going to see Richard Martin. If he can finish where he is, or at least up there inside the top 5, we're going to see him up in the 10th position, or up in the top 10 in points by time we get to next week's race. So we're waiting to see if the lights go out top pace car this time. I have a feeling we've got at least 2 more laps of pacing. Pace car lights are not going to go out, so looks like we will go back green. It looks like probably on lap 63, which is going to give us 4 laps to go, which is what I assumed. Richard Martin would be the leader. I'm pretty certain he's going to choose the outside line, have Grant Wesley pushing him again. So Tim Knopfsker lines up second. Actually, no, he would choose the inside line now because Grant Wesley is in third. 4th is Donnie Garrett. 5th is Bernie Mobbs. Rest of the top 10 right now: Terry Bombard, Josh Metallic, Brian Schilling, Chuck McClure, and Jeremy Jeffries. We've seen all these guys. Metallic, McClure was out in front a while ago. Brian Schilling, Jeremy Jeffries was up there at the front. Is it too late for these guys, like 6th place on back to 10th, to be able to get up there to the front, do you think? Or do they still have a shot?
Everyone in the field still has a shot. Even last place, I mean, here's the thing. As long as you're still running, you've got a shot. Now, how long that shot may be, that's debatable. But, I mean, at least everyone in the top 10 has a very feasible shot of getting up there. Past the top 10, it gets a little bit lower, but, I mean, it's still there. Now, I want to pick your brain for a minute, since I know that you're a betting man. What's your bet on that we're actually going to finish all these laps?
To be honest with you, with what I've seen so far in this race, I mean, they made me nervous back on those 2 green flag runs where they were 3 wide. We know that that third groove works, and a lot of drivers are willing to jump up there. I'm looking at that bright orange Oscar Mayer Ford Mustang of Josh Metallic to maybe be the head of that group to lead them around in that third lane, but just the way that we've seen these guys dancing around there, I don't see how we can possibly finish this entire thing under green. If they do, I will be really impressed, but just the hard racing we've seen midway point on, I think we're going to see a lot more of that now. I think these drivers realize the situation. It's all going to come down to positioning, because I think they're also planning this race could also end under caution.
I mean, you just got to think here. I mean, realistically, you need this thing to go green. But I'm going to tell you, everyone in that top 5, they're probably saying, nope, let it end immediately. Let's just go back green. Let's get an immediate caution. And let's just go race it back. Everyone in top or outside of the top 5 saying, please let it go green to the end. Let me have a shot.
Well, we'll see if they get it. As I do believe that any caution that would come out after this point when we get the green flag will end the race under yellow. And the way that the system works, it's frozen field cautions. Whoever is the leader at the time that the yellow flag comes out wins the race. And Richard Martin does indeed choose the inside line, because Grant Wesley is down there as well. And I almost wonder that with this too, you know, I picked your brain and everything, but that was when I was assuming that Wesley was going to be in the outside line. I mean, when you're on the outside line, you run the risk of being a sitting duck. Now he's on the inside line. If a hole opens up, you got to think he's going to stick his foot in there.
See, you'd think, but you know, it always can surprise you of what people's actions are. Obviously, if you're not thinking through the whole situation, the obvious move is, no, don't help anyone. Just go for the front, go for the win. But here's the thing: if you abandon everyone and try to go for the win, you're not going to get up there because hey, everyone else is going to be grouping up trying to get around you too. Your best bet: try to make amends with the guy in front of you and say, "Hey, I'll push you to the win," or "Hey, I'll push you until X next point, and then after we're clear and we're good, then it's you and me. We're on."
I think a thing we're going to see too that we didn't see in except the early portion of the race, and it really wasn't even a block. It was Nofsker getting down the apron and then coming up into Bernie Mobbs. But I think we're going to see a lot more mirror driving of these guys up here at the front. A lot more blocks being put on as it's going to be 4 laps to go with Richard Martin, Tim Nofsker, the front row, Grant Wesley, Donnie Garrett in row 2, Bernie Mobbs, and Terry Bombard, the top 6. Question is, will they settle it out amongst themselves, or will Josh Metallic, Brian Schilling, Chuck McClure, Jeremy Jeffries, will they get into the mix? Green flag going to come out here at Talladega. Question is, which flag are we racing to, the yellow or the white?
Remember, when 15 to go, they race back to the yellow, so even if they wreck, it's not the end.
Good point. Good point. I'd forgotten about that. So, yeah, it is. The frozen field cautions do not come into play at this point in time. So depending on if a wreck happens, where it happens, they still continue to race back to the caution as Martin gets out in front. Grant Wesley helping push him, but that middle line of Nofsker, let's see what he can do. With help from Donnie Garrett, they're going to draw even going into turn 3. Oh, contact! And Nofsker's going to go around off the nose of Donnie Garrett. That's it. We're racing back to the caution as McClure's up in the air. It's a big wreck over there in 3 and 4. Maybe 5 cars got through unscathed. And Richard Martin is going to come to the start-finish line. He'll see the caution flag. It might as well be the checkers because this race will end under yellow with Martin winning. Bombard will be second. Third will be Garrett, and fourth's going to be Metallic. But we had 3-4 cars up into the air there, and I think we had upwards of 20 cars in that wreck over in turn 3.
You call that a giant pileup. I call that a graveyard.
Good gracious. Looks like a parking lot on Black Friday at a Walmart. As Andre McGoyan, he's involved there. A lot of damage. All these drivers trying to race back, if you can call it a turtle race, back to the start-finish line. 4 positions here. There was Fergoin in the 95. Dave Little was involved. I know the 17 was one of the cars I saw up into the air. There he is. There's co-points leader Joe DeSpirito. He was involved. I mean, it'd probably be easier to name up the drivers that weren't involved rather than the drivers that were. Look at Grant Wesley. Oh, my goodness.
You can't criticize the people who are trying to get back to the line now because, I mean, here's the thing. You got to remember every point counts. You can lose a championship at the end of the season by 1 or 2 points, and you know, you may not think it, but hey, racing back to the line here against other broken cars, I mean, hey, that can make your season.
Absolutely. No doubt about it. A point lost, or even in the first race of the season, could be the difference maker in the season finale. And I'll tell you who this is going to be huge for, and that is Donnie Garrett. You talked about it. You know, third in points. He's not going to win this race, but both drivers that he was battling for the points lead involved in this, and I don't know how Grant Wesley's going to be able to make another 2 circuits. The left front on that car is gone, folks. That's why you see white smoke as he's trying to get on the brakes. That car may not have a right rear either. I don't even know how that car is still running, how it's even still under power. But 2 laps to go has just been taken for the 43 of Richard Martin. We're going to go back here, and hopefully within this next lap and a half of pacing, we can show you what went down in turn 3. But we got a lot of replays to take. We're going to start with the 17 of Chuck McClure, who I know was one of the drivers that went up in the air, one of several.
Man, these cars just, jeez.
So it all starts with Nofsker. I think he tried to come down and side draft the 43. The contact that was made sent him back up the track, and there was no way he was going to be able to tuck back down in front of Donnie Garrett, but he tried it anyway. You'll see right here, I mean, he clearly was not going to be able to get back down there. He comes down into Garrett, and he keeps his car going. There you see the cars in the air. That's Mergoyne. There's McClure almost up into our camera. Terry Fox. There's Seminara in the 712. He gets into David Little. Novsker actually drives past all of this, and I think he still's going to finish somewhere up inside of the top 15.
See, that's the worst part about this whole super speedway racing, because normally with tracks, when you see banking, you can kind of assume where the car is going to go when it starts spinning. You can assume, oh, we're going to go all the way down to the apron, or we're going to go all the way up to the wall. But here, I mean, once these cars get spinning, they'll collect another car and another car and another car, where it'll just get to the point where you just cannot avoid them.
And also, if you think about it too, knowing the caution was going to come out and the race was going to end under yellow, I think I can guarantee you none of these drivers were lifting. They were keeping their foot in the throttle, closing their eyes, and hoping to whatever was out there that they were going to make it through. There's McClure. He got a hit at the end there by Melson in the 13. I mean, there's more. We're just scratching the surface of what happened here.
I mean, that brings me back to, I think it was a 2011 or 2012 Talladega race in October. I mean, just seeing all the cars up there, everyone was really. We're actually getting some words that it looks like the 43 may have pushed up into the second lane. The officials are taking a look now. The wind may be stripped, so we'll see here. I mean,
boy, Wesley was up in the air.
let's go and take a
was
look
up
back
in
at
the
the
air.
43 car and just see if he may have pushed up a little bit.
Yeah, we'll take a look here. As I think Terry Fox was up into the air as well. There's Joe DeSpirito. My word. I've seen some big ones at Talladega. That may be one of the biggest I've seen in a long time, but we're now going to go back. We're going to look and see that battle up there at the front between Martin and Nofsker. Let's see if indeed the 43 does push up. One of the tough things about these type of races too is, you know, when drivers all fight for the same piece of real estate. Oh, you know, just looking at it from my point of view, it looks like the 43 pushed up, but it also looks like the 088 came down. They both kind of went into the same lane, perhaps. We'll go back and take another angle at it. We'll look from the helicopter cam and see. And as we play it in real time, we'll let you and the chat be the judge here. I mean,
I think he may have gotten a little bit of help from the 88 in the back, because I mean, when you get those shots in the back, I mean, you it's not always perfect dead on. You do wiggle a little bit.
yeah, I agree.
Now, just a question of, did he willingly control his car, or was it out of his control where he was forced to be like this?
Take another angle at it here.
Or was it just a kind of a circumstance outside of his control?
Well, whatever the case here, we're waiting to hear from the admins about it. I mean, just from my point of view, it looked like it could very well have just been a case of two drivers looking for the same piece of real estate. We've got drivers that, as Richard Martin has crossed the line, it looks like they are giving him some congratulatory door bangs and bumps here. So I don't know if the word is official that he has won this race or not. I believe we are awaiting the confirmation on this. You see the congratulations from Donnie Garrett.
Just poked my head in the driver's room. I mean, just hearing the fallout from all this. I mean, everyone's just shocked. I mean, everyone's cars look like crushed soda cans. It's amazing. Like,
well,
man.
Let's be clear. Grant Wesley's is a crunched Gatorade can, but or a Gatorade bottle. But it looks to me, I don't know if the admins have made the official word, but it looks to me like a lot of in the drivers' minds that the 43 is the official winner. They've been giving him some congratulatory nudges here.
Currently, it's they use the dashes on the lane dividers as kind of like an indicator on this track. But we're still waiting for official admin word.
Richard Martin, at least for the moment, is going to come down here and burn it down at the start-finish line at Talladega in front of the Alabama fans. We still await word on whether or not the win will stand. If the win does stand, however, big points day for Richard Martin. Led the last 20 or so laps of this race. A lot of them under caution, but he was very good on the restarts with help from Grant Wesley. And he came into this race 11th in the point standings. And we mentioned top of the program early on in the season is when you want to get those wins, you want to get those bonus points, the max points possible, because that's what's going to gain you a lot of positions in the standings.
If this does hold, this is a big momentum push. First week he finished 6th. Last week he finished 20th. That would be a huge gain from going from 20th to 1st. So
obviously he's hoping it sticks.
And if I'm not mistaken, I believe that everybody ahead of him in points, with the exception of Donnie Garrett, was caught up in that wreck. So that's a lot of drivers, depending on where they officially finish this race, that he is going to gain points and possible positions on. So we're going to wait for the official word, find out if indeed the win does stand. We're going to take a brief intermission and be right back here with your full finisher results from race 3 of the Talladega Challenge here for RTG. Don't go anywhere. Post-race interviews coming up as well. And we are back here as the race standings at this point in time are official. We've gotten word that apparently the finish and everything will be under review, but a post will be made at a later time. So we are running with the finishing results we have here. Richard Martin with the win. Terry Bombard going to bring it home in second. Terry was up there in the point standing, so a good run for him, as well as Donnie Garrett, who is now the new points leader because of this third place run. Josh Metallic will finish fourth, and Dante Risi, who we saw barrel rolling over in turn 3, he's going to bring it home in fifth. Frank Rivard in sixth. He was caught up in a wreck earlier on. Mark Paglia, he was riding the back straightaway wall. He's going to finish seventh. Cy Jones, who we saw moonwalking it to the start-finish line earlier on, he's going to finish in eighth. Tim Knopfsker, who pretty much was at the start of that wreck, will finish in ninth. And Jack Dussault, who also found himself airborne on the back straightaway, finishes in the 10th position. But you look on down here through the rest of the results, and there's some of these guys, I don't even understand how they made it back to the start-finish line. Most notably, Grant Wesley. No left front tire. The car was smoking. The car was basically junk. Somehow he limps that thing home to a top 20 finish in 16th.
I think that's just perseverance. It's just trying to make it to the end no matter what.
Joe DeSpirito, who came in, co-points leader with Grant Wesley, last week's winner, going to finish in 21st. And if we look down through the remainder of the finishing results, some drivers did not even make it back to the checkered flag. Brian Schilling's going to finish 33rd, Crivello 34th, Tony Fox, who was up in the air, 35th, Jeffrey Elliott in 36th. And then the rest of these drivers were involved in incidents in the early portions of this race. Wiley Coate out of the race in 37th due to a mechanical problem. Jessica Shelton also had a mechanical problem on a restart, finished 38th. Billy Elliser finished out in 39th, and Robbie Nisus, who I think was involved in the second caution of the day, he will finish in the 40th position. So Richard Martin is your winner here tonight at this point in time, based off of a admin review in the third race of the season for the RTG Talladega Challenge. We're going to step aside real quickly once again. We're going to get words with our 3 podium finishers here when we come back in just a moment. And we have third place finisher and new points leader, Donnie Garrett. And Donnie, we were talking about it was easier to name up the drivers that got through the wreck rather than those that were caught up in it. You were right there in the vicinity of where it started between you and Nofsker there. From your point of view, what happened with the contact between the top two?
I was behind Tim there, and I went back and looked at it, and I didn't touch him. It looked like to me Tim just made a bad judgment there and went down, and I don't know if the 43 came up, but I know Tim definitely went down. But I went back and looked at the front end of my car, and I definitely wasn't on him or anything. So I don't know. I hate it, man. You get down to the end of these races, and it gets real. And but it was a great race, and just glad to be here. You guys are doing a great job with the broadcast. I went back and listened to that first one you guys did, and I got to thank RTG for putting these things on. And man, I've been up front in all of them, so I've done pretty good here so far. Just really trying to buy my time. And in the last 2 races, I finished 4th, and so that's kind of my goal because the first 3 got to go to the back. So I like that 4th place finish myself.
Yeah, Matt was kind of our statistician here tonight, bringing up the fact you had the back-to-back 4th place finishes to start out the season, and you get another top 5 run here tonight. Like, how is there a method of being able to be consistent like that to finish up inside of the top 5, or does a lot of it being at a super speedway just come down to luck and being in the right place at the right time?
I tell you, I've been doing it for 23 years, and I've been at this old game for 23 years, man. And you know, I don't mind telling you, I'm a bottom feeder. You'll see me lay on that bottom because if the wreck happens, I got somewhere to go, and that's saved me so many times. And the top side's faster, but if you get up there and the wreck happens, man, you're at everybody's mercy around you. So I like to stay on the bottom, win, lose, or draw, until I can get inside of that last pit stop, and then I I'll fade up there if I need to. But like I say, you got to know who to run around. And we've been running with all of us guys here. We've been running together for years, so I know what they're going to do. I know their moves, and I know every little nuance of what these guys do, and that helps a lot.
So, I mean, I've got to ask the big question in my mind is, when is that win coming? I mean, I've looked back at your season 49 stats and your season 48 stats, and, over those last 2 seasons, you've only had 1 win. I mean, you got out to a fire start this season. I mean, when is it coming?
Well, I tell you, I was one of the guys that dominated, for a while. I'd win 6, 7 races a season. And then, I got to give the guys credit, man. Joe DeSpirito, Bob Seminara, those guys, we call them the Florida connection. Those guys came in, man. And I tell you what, it's been hard to win. Those guys are the real deal. And I got a lot of respect for those guys, with their abilities. And, but they stay together. They won't hang each other. And, me and Tim, we have a bromance, and that's something we've had for years. But I tell you what, I'll dump him, I'll hang him to win a race. He'll do the same thing to me. And winning don't come as easy as it used to, and it's tough. But right now we're early in the season. It's not about the wins. It's about good finishes and padding some points. This is a tough series, man. And if you get out here and you try to win every race, you're gonna get your butt handed to you. And you got to be smart in these races, man. That's the number one thing is be smart, and hang on and try to get points. You got to pad points early in the season, and then go for it. And um, but like I said, that's what I've been able to do the last couple of seasons. But I've got a method that I run, and it works.
Donnie, this is such a unique series too because of the fact that you're going to Talladega every single week. You got the same track, same physics, same cars, same setup. Is there any point where you're continually learning, continually adapting, or with having everything basically the same each week, you're able to come in with a game plan each and every time and be able to try and execute it each week?
I got the same game plan every week, man. Stay on the bottom. Stay on the bottom, hug that bottom, win, lose, or draw. If it goes back, it goes back. That's fine. I don't want to be on the top early because the wreck's going to go high before it goes low on average. And I play the odds. I'm a gambler, so I'm going to play the odds, and I'm going to lay on that bottom. And you watch them. We'll go back and watch the wrecks, and all them guys up at the top, man, they're setting ducks, and I don't want to be up there. And now at the end of the race, sometimes you have no choice but to be up there. But I like to lay on that bottom. So yeah, I've got a strategy that I come in with every week, um, and it works. But other guys they don't like the bottom. They can't take that going backwards a little bit every once in a while. But saving fuel. Maybe pitting a little bit early. I can attack pit. I attack pit road really hard, so I can run really hard up into pits. On a green flag pit stop, that's why we always get out usually ahead of everybody, except for that race you guys call, which we actually got together and caught those guys. But it's been good. It's been good to me this first 3 weeks, man, and just got to keep it going here.
Well, consistency has definitely been key for you here. After 3 races, you're now the new points leader heading into race 4. You got a little bit of a cushion, not much, 6 points over Grant Wesley, but obviously a great start to your season. And as Matt said, you kind of get the feeling that maybe that win is very close on the horizon. But for now, we're going to let you do some shout outs, Donnie.
I will give a shout out to RTG, man, for putting this thing on, and you guys for your great broadcasting, and give a shout out to everybody out there in the YouTube land there watching. I go by the Nature Boy. That's what most people call me. Been that for years, and just give everybody a big old woo.
Island profile into the third place position here tonight is Donnie Garrett. Congrats, and hopefully this gives you more momentum heading into next week.
10-4, buddy. Appreciate it. Woo!
Sometimes it helps to be a wrestling fan to get those references. Matt's over here probably scratching his head.
I've been
Anyway,
scratching my head the entire time.
anyway, let's bring in our second place finisher here, Terry Bombard. And Terry, I mean, first off, we kind of saw you mid-pack in the early portions of this race, but then all of a sudden you jumped up there to the front and you never found out of the top 10 after the second half of this race. You had yourself there in a position to win. We saw you flooring it through the tri-oval, trying to beat the 43 back to the start finish line. What, if anything, could you have made up that ground to maybe get a little sniff of draft off of him and get him at the line?
Coming to the line for the checker, there was no way. I had to lift too much for that wreck because I saw Tim get loose, and I don't know what shot him up the track, but I backed off of Donnie to give Donnie some room to let him get back down, but I don't know because he just didn't want to. So, but I lifted off the gas, and he was going for it, I guess, because you know how broadcast races are. Everybody goes for it. Everybody tries to get what they can, but whatever. But I'm happy with second. I just closed my eyes, kept it straight, and hope nobody hit me, and I'll take second any day of the week after getting stuffed it in the wall head on at the start of the race, so that's good.
Yeah, we called the first race of the season, and we saw you guys making some green flag pit stops there. But here today, you guys didn't get the opportunity with quite a number of wrecks, and we saw quite a number of blowovers as well. Do you think that because drivers are now getting a little bit more comfortable after getting the beginning of the season jitters out, now they're getting a little bit more comfortable to make these three wide moves all the way back through the field?
Oh, definitely. You know, you race with the guys. We've got a few new guys here, so it takes a little while to get used to them, and then once you get going. But I usually just ride around in the beginning of the race and just try to stay out of trouble, and hopefully we get a green flag pit stop, and I can pick up some spots there, and I get to the front usually. So that's all good. I come here, have a good time, and if I win, I win. If I don't, I don't. It's all good.
You know, Terry, I'm looking at the stats here. I mean, you've almost always started at least mid pack around 23rd to 28th. I mean, what's your strategy here? Is it more or less just kind of ride around him and at the end of the race make a full charge up front, or?
Yeah, like I said, I stink at qualifying. No matter what I do, I watched somebody made some videos on how to qualify and do good. I stink. Nothing I do works, so I always start the same. I usually run the same times all the time. I run around on the bottom, try to stay out of trouble because I can go left and get in the grass if there's wrecking. And like I said, wait for that first green flag pit stop, and that separates the field, and I can pit pretty good. So I usually get in the lead pack, and that's how I usually make my moves. I just wait for the lane.
I mean, I guess the old adage applies that it doesn't matter where you start, it's just about where you finish.
For sure, especially in this game. Just got to stay out of trouble.
Yeah, Terry, we were talking with Danny just moments ago, and he said, like, in the closing stages of the race, his strategy is just a bottom feed because it will keep you out of trouble of a possible wreck that takes place. Do you have any kind of a strategy like that at Talladega, of a place you would prefer to be there in the closing stages of the race, or is it just basically circumstantial on where you are in the field at the time?
No, for me, it's pretty much circumstantial. Wherever I am, that's where I usually try to stay. I don't get a lot of help from people, so it doesn't bother me. I'm used to it. It's been that way for a long time, and I have a few friends. We'll hook up once in a while, but normally I'll just try to stay where I can and just get as many points as I can, because with the new rule of qualifying, if you're not in the top 25, you have to race your way in. I would never make the race, so I just try to get the best finishes I can get.
Well, you definitely got a good finish here tonight with that runner-up finish. You jump up 4 spots in the stands. You're solidly up there now in the 5th position in points, so you shouldn't have any qualifying worries here, at least for the next few weeks. But for the moment now, we're going to let you do some shout-outs.
Yeah, well, I think Flatout Racing, you guys do a great job. Appreciate you coming over here and doing this with us, and hopefully we can put some better races on for you than this one. First one was pretty good. RTG, Rolling Thunder Gaming, best around, so love that. And shout out to my kid at teamkraut.com. Check it out. Our real live racing page. My kid races real life, so he has a page that he puts his cars up in his stats and everything. So give it a whirl sometime. Thank you, guys.
That's Terry Bombard. He brings it home 2nd place here tonight so far in the season, his best finish. Hopefully, further on down the road when we talk to you, you'll be 1 position better in victory lane. But congrats on a great run tonight, Terry.
Thank you.
And let's go down to victory lane where we have tonight's race winner, Richard Martin. And Richard, I mean, we've looked back through the replays, numerous camera angles and everything. What, from your perspective, went down over in turn 3?
I just think that Tim and I got together. I don't exactly know what happened. I heard that somebody pushed somebody up high and he pushed him down into me a little bit. I'm really sorry about that. We just had a little bit of contact there, and I didn't want it to end like that at all. I tried to keep that car as low as I could. We had so many, clean laps, lap after lap, him and I side by side, and I just hate to see it end like that.
Well, the end result is you crossing the start-finish line first, but you had to really get a lot of track position in order to hold that lead. I think you led the final 20 laps of this race, in part to 2 restarts where you had Grant Wesley behind you. Were you and 88 working out some kind of a deal where he was going to push you the entire race, or did you get a feeling that he was going to help you at that point, but then when you got to about 5 laps to go, and especially the white flag lap, all bets were off?
No, I knew he was going to help me 100% all the way, because that's the kind of guy he is, and I would do the same thing for him. So I knew he was going to be there. I didn't know beyond that. A couple of guys that I work with a lot, they weren't really up there at that time. So it was pretty much just Grant, and he helped me a lot tonight. Gave me some good advice too towards the end.
Now, just a question here. I mean, looking at your previous race results, I mean, last week was just not a good week for you. I mean, you qualified 25th, finished 20th. I mean, how big is it to come back and, hey, you almost qualify in the top 10, you finish first? I mean, how much is momentum builder is this?
Oh man, this is huge for momentum. I mean, I'll probably, be 5th or 6th in the points, maybe something like that when this is all said and done.
Currently, you're 4th.
It really means a lot.
Yeah, currently you're 4th in the standings here at the moment. Just looks like 2 points back from 3rd.
Trying to go for the championship, but you never know from week to week, and luck has a lot to do with it. And then, like I said, trying to keep yourself up front. The last 20 laps, I stayed out when I probably should have went and got half a can or a splash of fuel. I didn't do that, but I kind of figured there was going to be a caution, maybe two, and then I would be good. I clutched it a lot during the caution.
And then just one last thing to finish up, which is, I mean, here's the thing, just looking at the stats today, I mean, more or less you were pretty much on top of it. I mean, even if you think this thing went green all the way to the end, you think you would have still managed to pull this one out.
I'm not sure. We had so many times, so many laps where we came across and he'd be ahead and then I'd be ahead. And then, with Grant pushing me like that, I just didn't know until that incident happened at the end.
I want to go back to a point that you made just a moment ago, Richard, about the closeness on fuel. Obviously, with two cautions there in the latter portions of the race, you guys had more of an opportunity to be able to save. But you were one of the guys nearing the 20 laps to go that came down the first lap of caution and then stayed out on the rest of the pace laps. Just how close were you on fuel had that thing gone green to the end from that point?
Never would have made it. I was that close. I had to clutch a lot. I thought about coming in the second time around, but then I was worried about track position. So I just came in the first time, topped off, came back out, and clutched it a lot. I'm not sure where my son finished, but he was in the race as well.
Looks like he finished in the 24th position. I think he was caught up in that big one over there in turn 4. But, Matt and I mentioned at the top of the broadcast early on in the season, you get wins, you get good finishes. It really jumps you up in the points. You leapfrogged 7 positions in the stands tonight with your victory. So a tremendous job. Your first win of the season here, and now up there, as you said, trying to get up there into the championship battle. And this will definitely help you in that regard. And we're going to let you do some shout outs now.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you to Flatout Racing Network. And thank you guys for putting on a great show. And I hope it was enjoyable to you guys up there looking down at it. And thanks again to Grant and everybody that was behind me pushing. I really don't even know who that was. And like I said, I'm sorry about that incident at the end. I'll take the win, but just sorry that happened.
That's Richard Martin. He finishes P1 here tonight in the third race of the season of the RTG Talladega Challenge. Congratulations. Go enjoy your win.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
And that's going to conclude our coverage here tonight, Matt, from Talladega Superspeedway. And I know that obviously you weren't a part of the broadcast crew for the first race, but I think you saw parts of that. It was almost like 2 entirely different races from week 1 to week 3.
I mean, here's the thing. Many people may call it, a wreck-filled race or just, drivers being careless. But here's the thing. That's the kind of thing where when you race with these guys week in, week out, you start to learn about their tendencies, learn what they can and can't do. And it's more or less a strategical, I think I can pull that move and I think they can handle it. And, it kind of turns into, oh, I think they can handle that move. And it turns into, uh-oh, they can't. And now we've just caused a giant pileup. So it's just the cause of these guys getting way more familiar with each other, just knowing how each other drives. So you're going to see this probably refine or, the caution start going down within the weeks.
Yeah, and just to kind of put into perspective for those that may not be used to this type of racing and everything that are watching, it's literally like 40 drivers going to school, constantly learning at over 200 miles per hour. That's basically what's going on right now. To your point, I think it was Donnie said there's some new drivers that are here in the league. They have to learn what their racing tendencies are, what they're capable of doing, what they're not capable of doing, and as you said, as we get further on into the season, these drivers are going to know the comfort level of, maybe pushing somebody, maybe laying off of somebody, and we're going to end up seeing a lot cleaner races. And we're going to see these 3 wide races that we saw here tonight actually be able to go 10, 12, 15 laps consecutively without incident. But it's baby steps. That's what happens when you get new drivers into a league. Everybody's just got to get to their comfort level. But still, a wild race here tonight. I don't think I've seen as big a big one as we saw there coming to the final caution, the proverbial checkers, if you will. A lot of drivers got airborne as well. But you know what? I think we can take everything that happened, sum it up into one word, and it makes perfect sense. And that's Talladega. It's just typical of what happens when you come to this super speedway.
you just don't know what's going to happen. Hey, maybe it's haunted. You never know.
It's on an Indian burial ground from last I knew, so
Oh no.
so you may have something there. But nonetheless, congratulations to Richard Martin on the win here tonight, race 3 of the RTG Talladega Challenge. Thank you to everybody that tuned into tonight's event. Hope that you enjoyed these wild 66 laps from this tremendous high-banked super speedway. Matt, I want to thank you for joining me here tonight in the broadcast booth.
I was shocked I was even here.
Not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
As always, it's nice being in a booth. So
absolutely. So that's going to be it for us here tonight. We will be back in 2 weeks to bring you guys race 5 of the RTG Talladega Challenge. So be sure to tune into that. But for Matthew Rodriguez, I'm Seth Cole. Thanks for tuning in to another event here, another broadcast brought to you courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network. Have a great night, everybody.